And wow, I wish I figured out this tool earlier. Sure makes life simpler. Okay, so we're moving on to archival. What we did in archival, that little crossover, significant piece of work, and it is not about just looking at a textbook. So the literature review gives you a sense of what exists out there. The archive is digging into the original data, making use of that data, revisiting it, considering it in light of what we see. A really interesting one that I found is that there's a book written by Pope Benedict, who is reviewing essentially the Jesus of Nazareth story in light of the archaeological digs, what we've learned and discovered in the last 60 years. So he was a pope. His faith is not questionable, but he certainly brings a different insight to the story given what we know now. He said ultimately the book starts with, we haven't reviewed this stuff in a few hundred years. We've just sort of taken it at face value, and we've learned a lot in the last 60. So it's a reconsideration. Simple things like nomenclature, the idea of Barabbas being this horrible villain that was chosen over somebody who's the Messiah or claims to be the Messiah, and ultimately he said when you review that story, it's the Romans who defined the two parties because the Romans had the political power. So Barabbas, Bar Abbas, the son of Abbas, is given this name because he killed Romans and he's a rebel. He is trying to get people to rise up against the Roman Empire in his village city. And so he is a murderer and a thief because he kills Romans and he steals from the Romans. So it's not unlike the Robin Hood rebel story. It's defined by the empowered. So that's an important piece when you look at archives. What is the archive? At what point, think about 2,000 years from now, Elvis, the king, what does king mean in English? What does it mean in so many languages? In a couple of thousand years, when those languages aren't around, what will the king mean? And when you find that stuff all over the world, and then you find the prince, and then the prince becomes the king of pop, and that's it. So now we've got Michael Jackson. And Michael Jackson was married to Elvis's daughter. It's all absurd. But if you think about the way the archive is interpreted, it causes you to open your mind to the possibility of something other than what has just been presented to you. That's good research, not blindly accepting what you've been told. So that's pretty much what I focus on throughout. And we're going to move on to the next in just 1 second. This one will stop.